Hello and welcome to Elevator Pitch. I'm Paul, this shaggy man is James, and joining us today is Shawn Alexander Allen. Hello there.
Hi guys, how are you?
Going well.
Very, very good. Thank you for joining us today. Now, you are here today to talk to us about your project Treachery in Beatdown City. So please tell us, what is Treachery in Beatdown City?
Okay, so Treachery in Beatdown City is essentially like turn-based-ish brawling, like side-scrolling RPG, side-scrolling beat 'em up with RPG elements to it. So it's like you go around an overworld and you run into fights, and you can use items and in these fights you can pick from your moves from a menu, and those moves, we wanted to make being able to execute moves very simple, so that pretty much anybody could play it, but it still has the complexity of knowing when to use them, because lower strength moves are more reliable, higher strength moves are more likely to miss. And then also we wanted to add this dynamic of psychology to the game where, 1 versus 1 is different than 1 versus 2.
Yeah, it's a very kind of interesting mashup. You've gone for like a Twitch-based brawler, and you've kind of pushed it together with some kind of strategy game. So how is it that you took what is a very Twitch-based mechanic and made a transition to something which is turn-based and strategic?
It was interesting. We were kind of working on a regular brawler was kind of like a thing in our free time. Me and the coder that's working on it, and I don't know. We were just like a little disenchanted with it. It's like I had this idea of making all these moves, but how do you do all those moves? Like I like the look of Tekken, but I don't know how to play it, because every move is like press X and circle to do this thing, but press X then circle then triangle to do something that's similar to the other thing. But I don't know. Like Virtua Fighter, same thing. Like all these fighting games that like I want to play, but I just can't. Like I like Street Fighter because it seems more simple, but still, like when I was a kid, I couldn't do a Shoryuken because it was so hard. And then in most brawlers, especially a lot of the ones coming out nowadays, all the characters are exactly the same. They all have very simplistic moves, very simplistic animation, and even like the older ones, like you pretty much had to make your own fun a lot of times. Like if you wanted to have fun with the game, you had to figure out all these extra things. So I figured, why not? Because there's also this older game called Hybrid Heaven, which came out on N64, and it's got a bit of this. It's kind of like a wrestling RPG where it's like this. It's made by Konami, and it's all sci-fi, and you're like fighting aliens one-on-one in this 3D environment. And when you grab them or whatever, you can then pick your move to go. But it's a little different than this because, well, it's a lot different just because they didn't really explore that space very deeply. Like it's very simple. It's like they just give you a list of moves, and all the moves pretty much just do something. Whereas in our game, we wanted to say like, an uppercut is most likely to knock down a character unless they're a big character that might be able to absorb 1 or 2 of them, and then maybe it has a cooldown. Because beat 'em ups kind of devolve into just these just like dominant strategy fests where people are just like, oh, I know that it like Double Dragon. It's like, I know the elbow will just knock down everybody, so they just keep tapping on the elbow, and you start to wonder, are you actually having any more fun?
There's definitely something to be said for kind of slowing down that, because I'm sort of the same. Like I've kind of got the reflexes of a brick and the memory of a goldfish. So when it comes to a fighting game, I don't remember much. I basically end up just kind of mashing buttons. But if you slow it down and kind of give me the menu options, it kind of exposes those strategic elements from those games, but in a way that I personally can actually do it. So yeah, I think it's really cool, kind of slowing that down, and I can understand that it'll keep those strategic elements, but in a way that I can do it.
Yeah, that anyone. I mean, I've had a lot of people play it from went to Evo with it, the biggest fighting game tournament, and those guys, like a lot of them, they really loved it. Because they found the strategy. Took a little bit of like figuring out the whole like turn-based element to it, but once they got it, like I had people who would sit there for like 5, 10, they would come back and they say, "Can I play again?" Or, they would just hang out and just play for like 15, 20 minutes. I did a demo during one of the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 finals because this guy had heard a lot of good things around it and he really wanted to see it, and so we're all watching in the dark this giant tournament going on, and he's just like, "Yo, man, do you have the game?" And so I'm explaining it to him while people are going, "Oh!" And then even still, like, you take it to just random people. Like at E3, they had a mobile pavilion, which just it was like anybody could come by and just, like, you didn't need a E3 badge. It was like in the hallway outside of E3. So we actually got a lot of different people that were just kind of wandering around, just like they would come up and say, "What's this about?" And men, women, children would just come up and say, "Oh, wow, this is really cool." And by the time they would find this very satisfying. So the fact that pro players can play it, and like people who just like the idea of one of those games, but like doesn't want to have to invest so much in remembering all this stuff, can play it. I feel like that's a big success.
Well, it very quickly differentiates itself. When I first saw the project, first screenshot, I'm like, "Oh, okay, River City Ransom sort of knock-up, that's cool, whatever." And then as soon as you see a little bit of gameplay and you see this turn-based element, it's still not completely turn-based, is it? You still walk around the scene and you can still position yourself and you can get behind people and things like that. There quickly shows so much depth to it, and like you say, it's the abilities of sort of a hardcore fighter, that complexity, except you can actually think about it and take your time and get it. Can you talk briefly about, I was noticing you were doing a gameplay demo on the Vita, and you've got sort of action points, but those, you can get more action points by doing certain actions, and it allows you to do sort of larger moves and things like that, which really seem to be a big part of the tactical aspect of the game.
Yeah, because it's like, we call them fight points, and I've tossed between action points. I don't know, terminology is always weird. You
fight points is better. I like it.
You want to keep it, I don't know, it's weird. Like, it's always that weird, like, marketing. Like, marketing sometimes is the one who names things in games, but I'm marketing, right? Like, I'm like most of it. So, and I remember we deliberated over that. But so the thing is that you start off with a bare amount of fight points, and like you start off with, like, if your main punch uses 8 fight points, we give you enough to do that move because we give 2 of the basic punch because we don't let people repeat the same move in a row. So you'll have a punch left and a punch right, and those, if that one's 8, you'll have enough to do a 3-hit combo. So then they accrue over while you're kind of standing still, which is not great to be standing still because that means the enemy can come get you. And when you do combos, so if you hit 2 or 3 hits in a row, then you will get, like, every hit that you do, you get like a bonus. So you'll get like 20% back. And then if you do a 3-hit combo, you will then get a multiplier on top of that. So then, if you do a 3-hit combo, you'll get 15 FP back, and then when your meter comes back, like, because your combo meter, which is like your turns, you get back your base points per thing. So you'll get back like 15, and then you'll get 8 points per meter that you use. So then you'll get, 24 plus 15. So then now, I can do bigger moves.
Yeah.
And then if I do like an uppercut, it'll be a finisher, and then that'll get its own special modifier too.
So in effect, it's sort of like, if you have low points, you can do, say, like 3 quick jabs, which might be accurate, so you land them, but they're not very powerful. But then that gives you enough fight points to then do like a roundhouse kick to the face or something like that in your next move. Yeah, it's a really interesting. It's like an obvious system which we just haven't used before.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's all about us kind of like encouraging people to take their time with it, I guess. It's definitely kind of inspired by like wrestling games a little bit, where it's like, that idea, and more specifically Fire Pro Wrestling, because that's a game that they give you, like, literally on the controller, square, X, and circle do weak, medium, and strong, and if you try to like pull out a suplex like 3 seconds into the match, it'll probably be countered. But if you do it when the person's weaker, then it won't be countered, and then they'll do like a lot of damage. So the whole thing is about trying to build up towards bigger things. But then if you try to like let's say you say screw it, I don't want to do a 3-hit combo, and I just want to do an uppercut. You'll maybe miss it, or maybe you'll hit the character like really early on, and you'll get an early advantage too. So it's kind of like because like like an uppercut might be like 24 points versus 3 punches, which will be 24 points. So we kind of wanted to give you these options that you can say like, yeah, I can just screw trying to build and do whatever I want, but then you might not succeed so well doing that.
So it sounds like there's a lot of inspiration here from kind of other fighting games, but you've got some pretty complex strategy elements. Are there any strategy games which have influenced this one?
Fallout 3 definitely. I played that a lot, and been playing a lot of XCOM since it came out. It's funny. I really like I like Skulls of the Shogun also. That's a really good one. I like the games that are a little. I don't know. I used to play RTSs, and like I remember playing like KNND or whatever. It was like this.
Crush, Kill, and Destroy.
Crush, Kill, and Destroy.
Yeah,
it's an Australian game.
I played that back like when the demo came out, and I really liked it. But those like games like that, and even like Fire Emblem to an extent, I kind of just get. I feel like I get backed into a corner. Like I just get lost in everything that's going on. So I just want games that are kind of snappy. So XCOM is just like, yeah, it's a shooter, but then it's like, yeah, but you get to stop, and literally all you're doing is saying go over here, go over there, go over here, and then if you mess up, you reload your save, and I think it actually makes shooters more interesting too. Like it's funny, a lot of people say like, I don't know how you make a fighting game like this or beat 'em up, and I'm like, yeah, but they reduced a shooter to a turn-based element also. Where they like change like third base, like it's like Gears of War but tactical. So I don't think it's so far off. Like shooters, I think require more on speed than beat 'em ups.
Yeah. Okay, so beat 'em ups, typically known for fantastic stories. What's our fantastic story in here?
Okay, so this is kind of interesting because. Yeah, it's definitely sort of based on a little bit, like the premise is that the world economy is falling apart, and it's the year 20XX. It's kind of meant to be that way, less as like a normal joke, but more of like a trying to put it in not put it in any specific time. And the U.S. President Barack Orama comes to
very legally distinct.
To give a speech at the UN, and during that speech he gets kidnapped, and the group that's claiming responsibility are called the Ninja Dragon Terrorists, and the mayor, Mike Moneybags, who's a billionaire, will not allow the East Fulton Police Department to investigate anything until the federal government gives billions more. So
suspicious.
Exactly. That's definitely. And so, and I mean, he's we just had a billionaire mayor for like 12 years of my life. So, it's weird. It's like there was a lot of jokes for a long time. Like that's the thing I noticed about a lot of these beat 'em ups is they kind of just they're influenced by movies that are these. Satirical looks at like our 80s culture in New York or wherever, because they treated like New York like it was the worst place, like Escape from New York and stuff like that. They're like, these places are the worst places on the planet. So then the Japanese devs who made these games looked at our place and was like, okay, well that place is crazy, but we're looking at it through the eyes of this strange parody, and now we're gonna make a game about like space mutant bikers that kidnap your girlfriend, and it's like. And it feels so weird, but this is more like I'm actually kind of trying to come at it with this like political take. Like I'm actually trying to cast people like, Dante Alighieri style, like you're casting these people that, are alive that may have like kind of even the enemies in the game. Like they're archetypes of people that you're like, I don't like you, so I'm going to put you in my version of hell. which in this way is like is living in my version of my city. And so yeah, the guy the chief of police, Antonio Santiago, he calls his daughter, who's in the police academy, and her two friends to go and do this investigation for him. And then everything kind of goes on there from there.
Yeah. And do I pick one of those characters as my main character?
You can like if you see the gameplay video, what we've done is you can use all three characters, kind of like Ninja Turtle style on the NES, where you can just switch between any of them at a time, because health is held over when you're on the map. So let's say you're down to like 10 HP for one character, you might want to switch for the next fight to another character. And also, each character has like a fairly different play style, so we wanted to, during the tutorial area, we wanted to give people, yes, you're going to use this person, now we're going to switch to the next person, now we're going to switch to the next person, and then when you get to the next map, you're free to just switch, like L and R, you could just switch between the characters. I wanted to make a game that had like, oh, this character is weak against throws, so you want to pick the guy who's big, who can throw the best, or, oh, this character's slow and is weaker against a lot of strikes, so, and it's kind of like you'll figure that out over time, like you'll play these characters, and you'll say like, oh, I want to use this character, or maybe you'll just always want to default to one character, and then that means you're just going to have a little bit more of difficulty in certain situations.
Oh, it sounds good. And do those guys level up?
Yes, but there's no experience in the game. Okay. It's kind of like you get to predetermined places and you'll learn new moves and you'll get more HP.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There was an interesting talk by Michael Bro, who made like 868 Hack. He made a lot of roguelikes, and he's like this big independent game designer who makes like a lot of really cool stuff. And he said that he removed experience from the roguelike for him because he wanted to, because he felt like having experience meant that players would become sociopathic in how they would try to kill enemies. Like they're saying, I gotta clear this entire map of enemies because I just want to level up right now. Yeah. So I felt like part of the point of this is that the three main characters don't want to be fighting all these people. So it'd be kind of weird, like ludonarrative dissonance to encourage it by saying no, go everywhere and kill everybody. Like more like no, because there's alternate paths through our maps too. We try to keep the overworld very fairly. It's kind of like on a rail, but you branch off at points, and then that's the section that you go to. You don't now loop around and come back through this other section. You're pretty much locked off. So then there's even story events that you'll be missing out on one way or the other, and they're all just about different altercations. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's a interesting way to think of a progression. Before I hadn't really thought about that. That sort of not so much tying it to killing things, but just your progression through the kind of the narrative as a whole is how you kind of progress. That's good. I like it.
Well, that was always. I've got a t-shirt up instead of my face. There's a mistake with myself there. It's something that I appreciate a lot because it's always been a disconnect with the sort of the game mechanics versus storyline, where even the concept of grinding to get powerful enough to do a boss or something like that. I'm at this point in the story, now I'm going to stop progressing to go and kill some really weak innocent things that I really don't need to get with at all, simply to further the game. It's like no, I'd rather just be able to deal with my issues and hit the points that I need to at the points in the story and not have to go out of my way to sort of break myself out of that narrative. So I'm a big fan of that kind of gameplay design. Hey, let's bring that T-shirt back. I liked it. I thought we should just share. That's the amazing art for your which is a Kickstarter reward. Oh,
yeah. I worked like days on that. Like, I mean, it's supposed to be funny. It's like this, I don't know, like the, President Obama, Orama, whatever, is kind of an interesting symbol, even if you don't approve of what's going on. I'm very disillusioned with all politics going on right now. But there was a point where I've never seen people on the street selling T-shirts with an upcoming president's face on it ever.
Yeah.
Like nobody. It's funny, like Bad Dudes specifically calls out Ronald Reagan. Like they have him in the game. It's like, are you a bad enough? Like in the arcade, it's, are you bad enough to save President Ronnie? And I don't know anybody who would have actually wanted to save President Ronald Reagan. Like he's like this guy that right now is considered like this is like the gold standard for like modern conservatism. Like they want to remove everything back to like pre-FDR. Like it's kind of crazy. And so like, but Obama was like this symbol. So it's kind of like, it's interesting to me also, being like I have a white mom from the South, and I have a black dad that I never met, a lot like Obama. So it's kind of that interesting, like, well, he shows a different symbol to me. Like that, like when you were a kid, black kids couldn't look up and say, oh, I can be president. So now there's this new character. So even if like you don't agree with his politics, it's still an important symbol. Like it's still somebody that I was like, I felt like I really wanted to vote for somebody at one point in my life instead of like so apathetic.
Well, that's the thing. Without turning this into the political podcast.
Yeah.
It's despite all the actual politics involved, so much of his value has been a symbolic one. You look at the Nobel Prize. There's almost like, well, he hadn't done anything yet for it to be awarded. It was there as a symbolic gesture and what he was representing, and so I don't think anyone could deny the symbolic value of, what was it, Orama, let's say?
Yeah, Orama.
Orama, yeah.
Interesting thing is Barack is spelled like a million different ways, and it always means hope. So it's just like, so you can spell with a C, spell with it's Mubarak also. So there's like, it's apparently a very common name too. So it's very easy to kind of make a parody character.
Excellent. Okay, so currently you're running your Kickstarter. How are you finding your Kickstarter experience so far?
It's very stressful. But kind of sitting here sometimes wondering like why people aren't interested or whatever. And I've been like just going kind of on a weird door-to-door uptick right now, just trying to reach out. Like even friends and family who like I say like, hey, have you seen this? And they're like, oh no. And I'm like, yeah, but I've posted about it like a million times on Facebook, and you find out Facebook just filters all that stuff away, so you have to actually message people straight up and say, have you seen this? And they're like, oh wow, cool. And then you'll see that they backed it like 5 minutes later, and you're like, it's so weird that I'm having to like go back to like Google Chat to talk to individual people or emailing people who like might not be on Twitter all the time or whatever. I've found a lot of great support though. Like my friends and family have all come out, and I've got a lot. Like the backers list is this kind of weird all-star list of game developers. Like there's like, you got Dave Lang from Iron Galaxy, he's a backer, and I even made his reward for him already, even if it doesn't. It's like the graffiti artwork.
Yeah.
But it's just like the fact that so many people have kind of come out and said, hey, yeah, we want to support you, has been really great too.
Yeah. And if you can get those people that are passionate now and just sort of get them, enable them to go and kind of spread the word, I guess that could help a bit.
Yeah, people have been trying to help. It's been a lot. It's been an amazing experience. Just it's like not even really negative. It's just super stressful and just super like constantly having to think about like, well, where is an avenue I haven't reached out to or whatever, or just worrying about what happens if it doesn't get funded, and then just having to think about that. Like I've already made commitments to go to GDC and PAX East, so like I'm gonna be there anyway. I'd prefer to be a happier thing, but I can't honestly let this go away after that either. So even if it fails, I'm gonna have to figure out something else.
Kickstarter, as you were finding out, is just a stressful month of your life where you don't get to turn off. That's what a lot of people. At least you are trying. It's the people that start and then think they'll just leave it and it'll get there. So it's still high hopes. I was thinking before when you were saying about how it's sort of an all-star list of people that are backing you. Do you think almost that possibly the pitch resonates more with people in the game industry and developers themselves?
Maybe.
Maybe. No, because I mean that's.
I feel like they're more willing to just try something new. I'd say that like they like a lot of people who I tell that are game developers are just like, oh yeah, cool, that sounds awesome, and a lot of people just who are game players, I found this weird. It's weird, and it's something I've been noticing recently. Is there's grown this interesting disdain for indie among like game purchasers, and they like think that indies are out to trick them. Like I read a post on a message board that straight up said I was trying to lie to people with all the stuff that I was putting out there, and I'm like, AAA spends $10 million on a CG trailer that looks nothing like the game that comes out. Like, we all were kind of lied to by BioShock Infinite's initial demo that showed something completely different other than what's in the game. I'm like, I have nothing to gain lying to anybody. And it's like, I'm trying to put this out there for people, and so many people are just coming back and they're just like, oh, well, this is going to be boring. And I'm like, yeah, but, like, a lot of games are boring. I don't know. Like, if people spend $60 before finding out and like a month later they don't even play the game, and then they open it up 3 years later and they're like, oh, this is kind of boring. I'm like, I'm just asking for like maybe $15 on an idea if you think the idea is cool.
Yeah. And I suppose on that sort of turn against indie, and there has been a slight trend towards that. I don't know how large it would be, but it's almost like when you're going to sort of nostalgic-based graphics as well. Once you get into that pixel art, I have had a little bit of a response from that where people go, "Oh, it's just someone trying to go off nostalgia again." It's like, well, it's something we recognize. We understand it lets us quickly understand what the game is, and it's an art style that's achievable at a smaller budget by a lot of people.
But I've been trying to mentally, like, trying to break it down in a different way, like thinking of it more as like an artistic movement and less of a cash grab type thing. I think there are people who are just like, that's all I could do. But then I think there are other people that say like, yeah, but I'm gonna really go after it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who don't try to go 120% with their stuff. They say, that's what I could do, and then they just put out a game. And I'm like an artist. I've made 1080p like animation and like 2D animated stuff for school and whatnot. So it's like, it's not about like that. I mean, yes, it would take me 5 to 10 years probably if I wanted to do all this stuff at that resolution by myself, but I had to personally think that the art style was worth it in order for me to pursue it. Like, I know some people probably just go after it, but I definitely didn't. And I know a lot of other people don't just go after pixels because it's easy. They go after because it's actually hard to formulate all that stuff.
Well, I've argued for a long time that it's it's almost our art style. It's such a game-centric art style to have, where pixel art. And it's not that some people do just try to replicate exactly what things look like, but it's also still an evolving style. I mean, you look at like sword and sorcery guys, something like that. They've taken pixel art and turned it into something that it never was before. And we've got people using different shaders with them and doing all sorts of things. It's it is like the gaming's purest art in some way. I think it's something that is only while other styles are more replicating things that other mediums were based on.
There's also that art. There's this nearly blind older man who there was like a story where he's doing pixel art with MS Paint because it's all he could see because he could zoom in. So he's making these giant paintings in MS Paint because he can barely see, and he's like a fine art painter. So it's like beautiful artwork that's like humongous. So I mean, the pixel is the basis. I mean, it's just a digital generation thing, right? I mean, it's the basest form. I totally think we're gonna see a lot of low-res polygon stuff coming out soon too.
Yeah, that's just, we're gonna. I don't know if I want to see that. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I didn't like it when I saw it the first.
I mean, pixel art ages quite well. I don't know if I really want to go play. I don't know. Flashback or something. Not Flashback. Fade to Black or something like that. Like like that. That wasn't so great.
I find the more abstract, well, not necessarily abstract, but as long as the polygons aren't striving for realism, and then now you get just nice shaders on top as well and everything. The low poly models can be very cool.
I would go back and play Interstate 76. That's how they.
Yeah, I'd play Interstate 76 with lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, we're prattling on about other games too much. Okay, we're going to draw this to a close now. So before we end, is there anything you'd like to leave listeners or viewers with, Shawn?
Well, okay, so a lot of people kind of ask me, like, why did I do all this stuff? And it's interesting because, like, and I don't know, I'm a huge brawler fan. Like, I play dozens. I played as many as I could, and I get people like come at me like, why are you trying to destroy the genre? And it's like, because I'm trying to open it for new possibility, because I feel like, and play is something that I'm really big into and I feel like this is definitely like one of those spaces where I wanted to give people a lot of room to play, a lot of characters that they could really like, and also that this game, even though it's set in a city, it's gonna go past that, and it's gonna have it's gonna end up in like the desert at some point, because there's like kind of like a crazy roller coaster storyline type thing that's going on with that. So I mean, this game is like, the game has like little in-jokes that are from our past, but all of it's very personal to me. Like even like the down to the attempted graffiti and a lot of this stuff. Like, I wrote a post on my Kickstarter about that too, about how like I grew up around graffiti, but it wasn't really my culture, and then trying to learn that stuff and learn about the culture really kind of made me very interested in the art movement. So it's like, it's nothing in this game's really throwaway. Like, I feel like there's this weird mimetic humor that goes on, especially in independent games these days, where people just throw out like lolcats or Mario references or whatever, but I'm trying to do it with some sort of like personal, like serious undertone, but like I have to kind of look at things with humor, because that's just who I am. And I've had to, I've grown up in this city. The city, I've watched it kind of get torn away from me, and so like I just kind of have to laugh at everything. That's just kind of who I am. Like, there was a poem that my friend gave me that said, feelers, it was like, feelers are sad, and like thinkers laugh at the world, or something like that. And it was just kind of like that. Like, all I do is I sit here just absorbing things, and I'm like, oh, cool, like the place that I grew up, got demolished the other day. So, and I'll laugh, because I'm like, I'm not going to cry at that. It's like, just how, like, I got to laugh at the way things become. So, and it's almost like a lot of this stuff is pretty much manifesting itself in this project, too.
Yeah, it sounds like a very personal project, which is good to see.
Yeah, it's like weird, because I wanted to make something that's cartoony and fun and vibrant, that people are like, yeah, this is cool. This isn't like some weird morose like indie thing, like an indie movie or whatever. But then it also, they can come to it and they're like, oh, there's actually some weight to it too.
Yeah, as best is, but some of the best comedy, it's based on tragedy, but it's also just having that grounding. If you're just being random and nonsensical, then you might have something that quickly grabs your attention, but there's nothing tying it together. By having a serious grounding and basing it on your own experiences and feelings and all that, so you can still be ridiculous and off the top of everything, but it's that consistency and that reality that just makes it feel gives us a little bit more weight to the entire thing, which just make me laugh more in the end if it's being funny with it.
Like just weird parallels. Like Rocky and Rambo are like very big, like personal projects for Sylvester Stallone, right? Like, I mean, Rocky has this crazy undertone of like these personal relationships between these characters, and he cared about these characters enough to self-finance these movies, like as an older person, and like the characters grew too. Like the characters became these more personal characters as the things went on, and it's just like. Yeah, like even in like big budget Hollywood blockbusters sometimes that are based on like this 80s cheese that we hear about, like they actually had a lot behind them too if you paid attention.
Well, I mean, you just look at any Verhoeven films or anything. You know, you go back to RoboCop, which is so often held up as the greatest of '80s cheese and everything. It's like, well, nobody thinks that doesn't have grounding behind it. It's a very serious message in that film, but it just plays with it in a fun way that most people get. I hope. Sometimes I'm confused. Some people think that Starship Troopers is pro-fascism. Don't think they paid attention. Anyway, okay. So let's bring this to the end now. Thank you very much for joining us today, Shawn. You've been wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Elevator Pitch. You can catch us on our website, 8.5bit, and subscribe to us and all that jazz. There's links and stuff. If you're watching us, whatever. I say that run at the end too regularly. Now, before we go, of course, the business. Treachery and Beatdown City.
Yeah.
Go check out the Kickstarter.
Woo.
Yeah, man. Woo. Go check out the Kickstarter. Have a look at this. This has to be one of the most thorough pitches that we've ever seen on the page. We were looking at questions to ask before the show, and they were already almost all completely answered on the page because it's just very detailed. It's not super long. It's not like one of those 50 pages of lore ones. It just covers everything we wanted to know about the game, and there's gameplay videos, and if you don't understand everything about it, just go see. It's great. It's a really, really good game design pitch. I love it. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I've been Paul.
And I've been James.
Ah, that's nice of you. And thank you again for joining us, Shawn. Now, let's dance out.